Spotlight is still shining big time on what effect his false claims could have on the LGBTQ plus community and, of course, the Black community, especially now that that jury has come up with a verdict. Back with us now to discuss all of this is Quentin Giles. He also spent a time analyzing this trial. Quentin, thank you so much for joining us here on the Midday Jolt. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Marcel.
Okay, good. Looks like my mic is working. Everything's going well so far. All right, let's break this down. Quentin, FBI records show the U.S. is seeing its highest rates in hate crimes, the highest it has actually seen in 12 years. How will this verdict impact actual victims when it comes to reporting hate crimes, especially in our most vulnerable communities?
Yeah, it's absolutely a black eye on the entire structure of victims and hate crimes because of what Jussie Smollett did. It's unfortunate that this case got more attention and publicity than actual victims in Chicago, period. And so it already has this overcast of doubt, especially when Black people say that we are being victimized, we are being harmed, we're being targeted, intentionally dismantled and broken down. And so this is going to continue to play into the narrative of people who believe that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in positions of power to have that have the power to change it, that will also look at this case and probably have a unwarranted dose of skepticism when people report hate crimes now, particularly from Black folks.
And of course, there's been a lot of reaction on this verdict. TMZ reporting that Black Lives Matter is standing by Smollett even after the guilty verdict. LA released a statement saying, quote, "We do love our community and everybody in our community. We can never believe police, especially the CPD, over Jussie Smollett." So what is your take on this topic?
You know, I believe two things can be true at once. We can stand with Black folks and advocate for Black folks like I am going to always do. And at the same time, we can hold our own accountable. I think it's a slippery slope if we are advocating for justice for the Karens of the world, making false accusations against Black people, Black men in parks while they're walking their dogs and saying we want them prosecuted. But then when we have one of our own who does the same thing and then uses, according to this jury, uses lies that directly impact the mental health of Black folks, talking about nooses, not negating the historical context of slavery and people dying for just being Black by being hung by nooses, we can still hold those people accountable. And so I think if we're not careful, BLM can do what they want. But I think if we're not careful, we overstep and kind of erase accountability for our own when the goal is to have equal accountability and justice for all.
Now, you mentioned several details there. Is there something else that you learned about this trial or something that stood out to you? There's been so many puzzles to this big piece of the trial that kind of stood out. And obviously, we all kind of were. It just was a very unusual case.
Yeah, you know, what I deduced from it, once Jussie Smollett took the stand, to me and the people that I've talked to, we all kind of assumed that this must have been like a lover's quarrel gone wrong. It almost seems as though all of them planned this together. The two brothers that turned state's witness as well, but they were all in so deep that neither one could come back and say, hey, we planned it together or I made it up. It seemed, I honestly believe, just assessing it, because it was so weird and so strange and various different details coming out, that at a certain point, everyone was in agreement with the plan. And then at a certain point, someone bowed out and no one is taking full responsibility for it. So I still think that there should be some accountability on the brothers' end as well, because they still participated, even if they're not fully saying how far back they were in on the plan.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So even with the attorneys planning to appeal, of course, let's talk about how this case is playing out on social media. I know he was trending yesterday on Twitter. Can you break that down for us?
Oh, listen, Black Twitter will tear you up in a minute, okay? And this was no different. The Twitter streets were on fire. People from every side of the spectrum were talking about it, you know, plastering Jessie's face on the Lion King with the two brothers in the end, or in the side. I saw that GIF. That was hilarious. Just people talking about, you know, really the historical. I think that was the more important one, talking about the historical context and the severe mental health impact that his lie had on us as a community at large. Because a large, if not all of us, let me not say all, but a large amount of the Black, brown, indigenous folks, allies, came to his defense, especially when you're talking about being a noose being around you and
Right.
thinking about the vitriol of the MAGA folks at that time. So I thought some of those tweets were very powerful, just tying in that mental health component of how we ran to his aid. And now so many of us feel let down because we were advocating for you and you were lying the entire time. So yeah, he was definitely trending yesterday. A lot of people on Twitter are saying his career is absolutely over. I'm inclined to agree with that. I saw another GIF or meme of them dressing him up in the McDonald's saying, yeah, the ice cream machine is working, making parallel to him lying.
Oh,
So
gosh.
yeah, Twitter was on fire. Yeah, Twitter was on fire, and I'm pretty sure he won't calm down anytime soon.
Yeah, the internet will for sure never let you down. So from what you saw, what do you think, let's talk about the jury. What do you think they latched onto specifically on this trial?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was Jussie Smollett taking the stand himself. We talked about the Kyle Rittenhouse case here on Bnc Go. We talked about the murder trial for Ahmaud Arbery. It's always, and I'm gonna stand by, it's always interesting when the defendant takes the stand themselves, because now it's not a lawyer speaking for you, it's you speaking for yourself. And so I think the thing that did Jussie in was when the prosecution, who is an experienced prosecutor, got under Jussie's skin. And got him to react in such a way that was highly emotional and highly suspect. And I want to go to Tashani Whitlow on the sister channel, BNC. She had a mental health expert on that was talking about there's a difference in a person speaking their piece versus a person speaking their war. And Jussie was definitely speaking his war, and that came through. And so I think the jury latched on to his performance on the stand and saw through the lies.
Yeah, no, most definitely. That this prison sentence could be up to 3 years. What do you think will follow with that? And could he even fill those 3 years completely, or will he just get a couple of days?
Yeah, I think 3 years is a little too harsh, honestly. I do think there should be some type of accountability, maybe some jail time, extended community service. But it's really up to the judge. If the judge chooses to give him the full sentence, sure. I don't think the judge will. And I'm not going to guesstimate as to how much time he would actually get. But I think that there has to be a certain level of accountability. There just has to be. If we are going to advocate, myself included, for people to be held accountable when they make false police reports against Black folks, particularly white people or anybody that just wants to harass Black folks for just being Black, then if it's good for the goose, it must be good for the gander. And so Jussie Smollett is going to have to pay and be accountable for the crime he committed.
All right, well, definitely a lot taking place this week. Quentin Giles, thank you so much for this insight. We always appreciate having you here on the Midday Jolt.